Hi, I'm Sarah Short, your host of the No Way But Through podcast. This is your weekly one-stop shop for all things mom. How to parent through those exhausting days with your little ones, how to be intentional and connected with your big kids, and how to embrace what truly matters and let go of the rest. From life with a newborn to toddlers to teenagers and everything in between, I'll teach you foundational and practical strategies on how to walk through every season of motherhood with courage and creativity, all while prioritizing your relationships with your kids in a home life where all of you can thrive. My Nana once told me, there's no way but through. Turns out she was right in life and in motherhood. So come along with me as we become better moms together. This is the No Way But Through podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back into the No Way But Through podcast. As always, I'm so glad you're here with me today, listening to another episode of Short Takes, which is our new series here on No Way But Through, where you ask me questions and I answer them. Your questions, straight to the point answers. Before we hop into today's question, this past week over on Instagram, I opened up a couple of question boxes on stories over there. I gave y'all an opportunity to ask me some questions, and then I got back on Instagram and answered some of them for you. And then I also opened up a box for you to submit questions for future Short Takes episodes. I got so many great questions over there on a whole range of topics and some really good ideas as well for future episodes of Short Takes. So if you aren't already part of our community over there, I really encourage you to join us. We'd love to have you. All right, well, let's get into today's question. This is one of the questions that came from the parenting conference that Jason and I spoke at a few weeks ago. But this is a question that I have gotten in various forms from the young moms in my real life. From my peers in my real life, this is a topic that we discuss often. And this is a question that's really important. It matters because it affects your life and your relationships, some of your closest relationships, not only with your parents as the grandparents of your kids, but it can also have immediate and long-term effects on your relationship with your kids. And all of us come from different situations, right? I could poll all of you and ask all of you who are listening to this podcast today to describe your relationship with your parents and your in-laws. And not a single one of us would have the exact same relationships with our parents or in-laws. None of us would describe them as exactly the same. Some of us have amazing relationships with our parents, really solid, good relationships. And some have the same with our in-laws. And some of us have relationships with our parents that are really broken. Some of us have parents that live close by and are really involved in their grandkids' lives. And some of us have grandparents that don't live anywhere close to us. And so the contact that we have with them is very limited. It's one of the things that makes getting a really good answer to today's question really hard. Because none of us have the same circumstances, it's really hard to find an answer tailored specifically for our situation. But I'm going to give you 3 things today that I think might really help you. And also, as with other weeks here on this podcast, I think will also challenge you. I hope that you'll walk away today encouraged and strengthened in your own parenting and also have some really good things to think about on how you want to move forward and parent your kids throughout the rest of the time that they're at home with you and children in your house as it relates to boundaries and grandparents. Before I get into us thinking through the question of grandparents and boundaries, I just want to say this because it's very important. When I'm referring to the relationship that you have with your parents and the relationship between your kids and their grandparents and all of the dynamics in this, I am not speaking to situations where there is abuse involved. That is not something that I am equipped to do, but I will encourage you, as I have on past episodes, that if you have a relationship with your parents where there has been a past or a history of abuse or trauma, I would really encourage you, if you haven't yet, to go get some really good counseling. I have had counseling as a young adult, and I credit the many years of counseling that I had as an absolutely invaluable part of my journey as a wife and as a mom. I cannot imagine who I would be or where I would be without those years of counseling and help that I got. I am a huge fan of counseling, and so I would really encourage you, if that is your situation, to get into some good counseling. Okay, so boundaries with grandparents. How do we set those boundaries, and what does that look like? I want to share 3 things with you today, and I'm going to get right into them now. Number 1, you are called to parent the kids that God has given you. God did not give to your parents your kids to parent. He gave you your kids to parent. There are no 2 parents on the planet who are going to parent exactly alike. And the way that you are parenting your kids is going to look different from the way that your parents parented you. That is not only right and good, but that's just the way it's going to be. And you aren't just parenting your kids the way that you were parented. You also have a husband, likely, who is parenting alongside of you, and he's coming in with a whole different set of experiences from his family. You are called to parent the kids that God has given you. And with that, you carry the responsibility of guiding them and discipling them and leading them through their childhood years and up into adulthood. Y'all, I've had to remind myself of that often over the last 20 years that I've been a mom. I don't have to parent my kids the way that I was parented. We don't have to parent our kids the way Jason's parents parented him. And we don't have to parent our kids the way that our friends are parenting their kids. You need wisdom and guidance from others. You need help and advice from parents who have gone before you. You do. But you have to be able to sift through all of that, whether it's books that you're reading or podcasts you're listening to or reels or TikToks you're consuming or older parents that you're talking to and advice that they're giving you, advice that your parents are giving you, that your friends are giving you. You have to be able to sift through all of that and take what works for you and let go of the rest. If you have been here since I launched this podcast almost 2 years ago, and you listened to episode 2, which was the very first full episode I recorded after an introduction for this podcast, it was titled 2 Moms of 1 or 2 Children. And it was a podcast based on a blog post that I wrote over a decade ago, sharing my heart for young moms. Here is just a little excerpt from that episode and from that blog post. You will find your way, not your mom's way, not Granny's way, not pushy Aunt Birdie's way, your way. What worked for your mom, Granny, and Aunt Birdie may simply not work for you. I love hearing the wisdom and experiences from the older women in my life, but I have to sift through their advice and experiences and choices to find what really helps me and what doesn't. Not only are all children different, but mothers are different. We tick and talk to different beats, some of us slower and some on hyperspeed, some on schedules and some just winging it. I'm the latter, Lord help me. As you get to know your children and build your home life, you will find what works for you. You will. And letting go of the expectations of others is a big part of that. Pull what works for you, respectfully let go of the rest. Y'all, over 10 years later, I still wholeheartedly believe every word of that. No one else is tasked with parenting your specific kids but you. You need help. You need wisdom from others. But God gave you your kids to you to parent in the ways that you feel are best for your specific kids. Okay, so that leads me to the second point I want to make here. When it comes to grandparents and boundaries, the best 2 things that you can bring to the scenario are transparency and clarity. Transparency and clarity. So one of the things that y'all tell me, and I know what is behind this question, is like you'll ask me, well, what do I do when my parents are constantly giving me advice about how to parent my kids? And I'm either annoyed by that, or it's causing us conflict, or it's causing me to have legitimate anxiety because they are saying things to my kids that I don't agree with. And I'm trying to parent my kids in the ways that I think are best and comfortable with. What you can bring into the situation are transparency and clarity. What do I mean by transparency? One of the things that I see and have watched with my peers when I was a younger mom, my peers now even, and with young moms over the years, is that sometimes what we will do is we will parent our kids differently in front of our parents, or not let them really into how we're parenting our kids, or let them hear or see the choices that we're making for our kids in our parenting because we are afraid of how they are going to feel about whatever it is. One of the things that I've seen is that friends of mine, they will become chameleons around one or the other set of grandparents. They won't want to be honest about the choices that they're making for their kids, or the parenting choices they're making, about the different issues that they're having with their kids, or their decisions about sports or school or vaccinations, or when or how they're going to church or doing church, because they don't want to rock the boat or upset their parents, who likely are not going to agree with some of the choices or all of the choices that they're making. And what this does is it further perpetuates the parents continuing to come and speak into situations, giving you unasked for advice or unwelcome opinions on decisions that you're making for your kids, because the issue at hand is never really getting addressed. And that's that you disagree with each other on the way the kids should be parented. Avoiding the disagreement is only going to perpetuate the problem. So what can you do? Live authentically in front of your parents when they're around you and your kids. Discipline your kids the way that you discipline your kids when your parents aren't around. Be honest about the choices that you're making. Be transparent and be clear. We got our kids a trampoline because we think it will be so fun for them, and we're willing to take the risk of them getting hurt. So we've put in some safety precautions, but we're so excited for them to have a trampoline. If they get hurt, we will handle that when it comes. Or if your parents or your in-laws are concerned about your kids' bedtimes, well, yeah, we decided that we're going to let them stay up until 10 p.m. on Friday nights because it's pizza and movie night, and we think they'll sleep in later on Saturday mornings. So yeah, we kind of just throw bedtime out the window on Friday nights. Or let's say it's about sports. Yeah, we know he's been asking to play travel baseball, but we just aren't comfortable with the schedule and the time commitment for our family. So yeah, we know it's something that he really wants to do, and we've given it some really good thought and prayed about it, but it's just not a sacrifice we're willing to make right now. He's just going to do club baseball this year. Honest communication, transparency, clarity. Those are just a couple of examples that I'm giving you off the cuff, but these are all things I've heard over the years from friends or things we've experienced. But y'all, it is so freeing to just be honest and live authentically in front of the grandparents and to just be clear. And if your parents or in-laws still disagree and want to express that to you, then that is where I'd really encourage you to take what works for you, let go of the rest, just let it go. Knowing that you do not have to parent your kids the way your parents parented you, and you do not have to parent your kids the way your parents want to parent their grandkids. Does this mean that there might be some awkwardness or some disagreement? Sure. But honor does not equal agreement. You can honor your parents and your in-laws and still disagree with them. I can honor Jason as my husband and still disagree with him, which I do about many different things and have about many different things over the last 25 years that we've been married, and him with me. And y'all, you can lead the way with this. Hey, Mom, I know you don't agree with us on this. We love you guys so much and are so grateful that you are involved in our kids' lives, but we just need to make the decisions that we feel are best for our kids, and it would mean so much to us if you would respect that and love us and support us, even if you don't agree. I will tell you that it is likely that it was never modeled for them. What it looked like to be good grandparents who allow space for disagreement and for the presence of boundaries. But y'all, you can lead the way. Do things differently and pray about it. Pray that their hearts will be softened even in the midst of the disagreements and for the sake of your relationship with your parents and your in-laws. Okay, so 1, you are called to parent the kids that God has given you. And 2, transparency and clarity are your friends. And number 3, your parents have the gift of perspective that you don't have. Y'all, I want this to challenge you, and I really want you to think about it and sit with it. Your parents have raised their kids, you and any of your siblings, and your in-laws have raised your husband or your wife and any of their siblings. And they now have years, decades of time that's passed since they were doing the parenting that you are doing now. Perspective is a gift. Perspective comes only with time, which means that the older people in our lives, our parents and our grandparents, they have perspective that we don't have. And y'all, I will say this. While I am still in it right now with you in a lot of ways, I still have 5 kids that live here in my home, even though one's away at college. I am still very much in it with you. But even I have some perspective that you don't have because I have some parenting under my belt now, right? Some years of parenting that you don't yet have, right? Oftentimes, when your parents are trying to give you unasked for advice or tell you how to parent your kids, it comes from a place of having perspective and looking back and seeing what mattered and what didn't. Yes, sometimes there is what we've already talked about. They think you should do things this way or that way because it's all they know and it's how they did it. It's what their mom did. It's what their aunt did. It's just what they know. And that's when you need boundaries and clarity and conversations and some of the awkwardness that comes from that sometimes. But y'all, they have wisdom that's really valuable because they have the gift of perspective and are able to look back and see blind spots that you might not recognize or see something in one of your kids that you don't see. And if annoyance and pride are leading the way in those relationships with our parents and in-laws, then we can miss the gift of that perspective and that wisdom. That's why the balance is so important between you parenting your kids and you needing the wisdom of others. God has put people specifically in your life as a means of His grace and love to you, to point out to you things that you may not be doing well, to show you the way forward because you actually don't have all the answers. You don't, and I don't. I still, as a mom of 20 years, even though I have wisdom to pass back to you, the moms that are just a few seasons behind me, I need the wisdom and guidance from parents who are older than me, and I still seek it out. Y'all, that humility will serve you so well if you keep your eyes and your ears open to receiving and hearing the wisdom of others, especially of parents who are older than you, whose kids have already grown up and have some really valuable life experience to share with you. Y'all, sometimes we as parents, those of us in the thick of parenting, and I think this is especially true about young parents, we can be like teenagers. And here's what I mean by that. Teenagers tend to think they have all the answers, right? If you don't remember this from your own life as a teenager, or if you don't have teenagers in your house yet, you will begin to see this when you do have teenagers in your house. But teenagers tend to think that they have all the answers to everything, or for lack of a better term, they think they know it all. And we know that they actually don't. Right? They're wrong about so much. The things that they think really matter don't. The things that they get super worked up about are no big deal. And we're constantly needing to parent that because they need our wisdom and our perspective. They just do. It creates conflict in our houses when there's teenagers living here, but ultimately we love our teens so much that we want to guide them and give them good advice because we just love them and we want them to do well and we want them to see their blind spots and see where they're not making good choices. So many times, y'all, I think that for a lot of grandparents of adult kids who are watching their kids parent their grandkids, They just want to offer that perspective. And while you are no longer their kid living under their roof, they're still your mom and dad, or your husband or wife's mom or dad. And they want to impart to you what they had to learn the hard way and try to save you from some of their regrets. That's why that balance is so important, y'all. You need wisdom from others, and some of the best people to offer that to you are people who are up close to you because they see things, right? They see you as parents in different scenarios and they watch those unfold. And so I would encourage you to be humble, be willing to listen. If they have advice to share, be willing to listen. And then confidently and with clarity, be willing to say, hey, we're going to do it this way, not that way, because we think this is what's best, but we love you and we're so thankful that you love our kids. I'm going to close with this. I know that there's a lot of brokenness in relationships with parents out there, y'all. I know this. I hear this from the young moms that I spend time with on a regular basis, and I have experienced this in my own life. And I know that this is true amongst my friends, amongst my peers too. But what I think is important to remember is that I want to have a relationship with my kids when my kids are older. As a mom now, and I'm sure you feel this way looking at your little ones, you want to have a relationship with your kids when they are parents, right? You are going to be living your life and they're going to be living theirs, but you will likely want a relationship with your adult kids, and you aren't going to know exactly what that should look like. But you're going to have strong opinions, and you're going to have your life and be traveling or working hard or serving or making your own choices within your very own life. But you're also going to have your kids and your grandkids, and you aren't going to know how to do that perfectly, just like our parents don't know how to do that perfectly. But you can be the example. Y'all, you can lead the way by honoring your parents, by disagreeing with them well, putting up boundaries, communicating well, knowing that one day you're going to be in their shoes, wanting relationships with your kids and your grandkids and messing up along the way. So how do you set boundaries with grandparents? One, knowing that you are called to parent the kids that God has given you. First and foremost, you are their parents, and you are the one ultimately tasked with the decisions that are best for them and for your family. Two, bring into every situation transparency and clarity. Be honest about how you live your life with your kids, and then be clear about the decisions that you're making in the way that you communicate to your parents and to your in-laws. You can honor your parents and your in-laws and disagree with them on how to parent your kids. Number three, remember that your parents and in-laws have a gift of perspective that you don't have. There is likely some good advice and good wisdom they have to offer you, even as broken people who didn't parent you perfectly and aren't perfect grandparents. But in that gift of perspective, likely they have some good wisdom to give you. Take what works for you, then let go of the rest. I hope this has been helpful for y'all today, just to think through how to set up good boundaries and how to communicate well. I think you will find that when you value the relationships over being right, over putting them in their place, over your own pride and frustrations, I think you'll find that you can lead the way with humility, and you'll find that that not only serves you well and your kids well, but that all of you will thrive under a much more healthy and honoring family dynamic. That's it for this episode of Short Takes. See y'all next time on the No Way But Through podcast. You've just listened to another episode of the No Way But Through podcast. If you want to connect with other like-minded moms and join our growing online community, head on over to Instagram and follow along with us at No Way But Through. You can always reach me over there throughout the week. And if you'd like to financially support this podcast, there's a link at the bottom of every episode where you can do just that.